Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're going to review the Phoenix Gene VR, a game that was released on the MetaQuest store but coming soon to Steam VR on October 8th. And I'm not sure on the price, but it should be the same as on the MetaQuest store, so I'm expecting $24.99. It's developed by Heromation and Michael Kaywood. I did receive a free Steam key through the Steam Creator Connect program to review this game, and full disclosure, I am Steam friends with Michael Kaywood, but as always I will do my best to remain as impartial as possible, but I am human and I want to be fully transparent. Anyways, the Phoenix Gene VR is an arcade style narrative driven on-rail shoot 'em up. The Phoenix Gene VR is inspired by Ikaruga and Star Fox. If you've played Yuki Space Ranger or The Lab's Zortex, then you're familiar with this VR genre. So basically you're holding the ship, or in this case the dragon or hero, in your hand with your motion controllers, and you're dodging, you're shooting. There's different abilities and power-ups and upgrades and dangers to be aware of. One of the unique things about the Phoenix Gene is that you can use the dragon as sort of like a marionette, where you're moving the dragon from one hand to the other using the grab button. And with some upgraded abilities, you can even push the dragon or hero further to reach objects that you couldn't otherwise reach. You can also change colors in order to absorb projectiles of the same color or open up new pathways. So let's talk about the Phoenix Gene VR, what I liked and what I didn't like. First of all, it is running on the Unreal Engine 4.2. I did not notice any optimization issues on my RGX 5090, but I guess that's to be expected. I did test the game out on both the MetaQuest 3 and the HP Reverb G2 without any issues, although I did get a warning at the start when using Windows Mixed Reality that the game wasn't compatible, but indeed it works just fine. As far as enhancements for PC VR, I have to be honest that I didn't really notice any difference from the Quest 3 standalone version other than a higher resolution. However, I do think this game benefits from the retro aesthetic. As mentioned earlier, it's inspired by Ikaruga and Star Fox, and the art style kind of matches that, although obviously a modern interpretation for VR. But let's be honest, this is not the best looking game in VR. Visually speaking, it pales in comparison to Yuki Space Ranger. So while I did enjoy the art style in this game, the artwork, at the end of the day, it is a low polygon art style with low resolution textures, and obviously this is a Quest port to PC VR. But again, personally, I enjoy the game's visuals because I do think it fits the retro aesthetic that the game was going for. Now, the game does have several accessibility options. You can start a new game on easy, medium, or hard difficulty. Beware though in lowering difficulty, because if you do so, you will not be able to change it back or increase difficulty unless you start a new game. There's also 4 different room scale options to choose from, so you can play this game comfortably seated or within a much larger room scale. I did initially start with playing this game at the largest room scale, but I found out it was just too big for my room, and it took me a little under 4 hours to complete the game on normal difficulty. I would estimate it would take most people 3 to 4 hours depending on skill level and challenge selected. The game will be naturally more challenging if you choose a larger room scale. As mentioned before, the game is very much story focused, and one of the things that I really liked about this game is that the story never gets in the way of the action. There are some brief cinematic scenes, but I thought they were paced appropriately and they always felt like a nice pause from the action. And a lot of the story is told while the action is occurring. I thought the voice actors all did a decent job, although maybe some of the sound mix was maybe a bit too robotic. The musical soundtrack was excellent though. I did enjoy the story, but as you guys know, I don't like doing spoilers on my review, so I'm going to stay away from a deep dive discussion about the story. But I will say, just like One Piece, the story is very political, and I think you'll either really enjoy it or you'll want to cancel the developers. I liked it. I actually thought it was pretty out there and pretty much on the nose as far as the American capitalist system, but I'm a pirate at heart. But yeah, it is a risky Steam nowadays, especially here in the USA. So kudos to the developers on that one. But lastly, I want to touch upon the gameplay, the heart of this experience. And this is where the Phoenix Gene really shines. If you like bullet hells or endless runners, I think you'll enjoy this game. It's got an arcade, frantic game style that can be quite challenging, especially if you have a larger room scale option along with the higher difficulty. It's a fun challenge, and there's different game mechanics that are introduced to keep the game interesting throughout, and the different levels have enough variety to stand apart for the most part. There are 8 total levels. I will say though that overall the game doesn't have quite the polish of a Yuki Space Ranger, so I would say it's a notch below that game. The Phoenix Gene is just a little messy, and I'll try to be specific, but basically one of the issues is the camera and how it sometimes just goes all over the place, and it's not always obvious exactly where you should be facing when playing this game. And sometimes I miss the action because I was facing the wrong way where I was supposed to. It becomes obvious if you try to play this game seated, and the smooth turn is just not really fast enough to keep up, at least not 100%. And the hitbox and the collisions are just not 100% precise, so there's some guesswork in trying to figure out what happened. Did I take damage? Did I damage the enemy? Did I crash into something? And it doesn't help that the movement is kind of delayed, although I understand that's probably an intentional gameplay design by the developer. But the sum of it all is that the gameplay just doesn't feel as tight and precise as it should be, and so it just feels a little bit slower than a Yuki Space Ranger. I also wasn't a big fan of how the upgrades were handled in this game. You just automatically get them as you play the game, so you find out later on, hey, I could have used that upgrade in an earlier level so I could have reached more crystals. And lastly, one of the levels is sort of kind of repeated, at least partially, and it sort of felt like they shoehorned into the story an element of time travel just to do this. But like I said, overall I had fun playing this game. There is a lot of variety in between the levels. The story is out there, but it is fun to follow along, and there is a nice challenge to the gameplay. The checkpoints for the most part were okay. When you finished a section it felt earned, but I didn't like when they failed you for not picking up enough passengers or not collecting enough of the little babies. So overall, if I have to rate the Phoenix Gene, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. It's good, but it's just not Yuki Space Ranger good, but few games are. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. That's been my review for the Phoenix Gene. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it useful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.
I love you so much, Beatrice. I really hope this works.
Mark Clottey harvested the Phoenix Gene to make the Life Right serum to cure his wife's muscular dystrophy.
That's incredible. This serum cures diseases, gives infinite lives. What's wrong with that?
Let me show you how they make it.